I'm known as Bride Martin. I was a Watson from St. Vincent, St. Mary's Bay, but I married a Martin. And that's where I make my home, down in St. Vincent, St. Mary's Bay. I had eight kids. They're all scattered everywhere now. Well, I had my garden, you know, my own vegetable garden out behind the house. But, you know, when you have a lot of small kids, you don't have too much time, and your husband away most of the time. You don't have too much time for gardening, but you grow the small seeds, you know, carrot and turnip and a bit of cabbage and a few plants and greens and potatoes and stuff like that, you know, and it will hold you over until the fall, you know. We had fish and potatoes, that was first choice. Fish and potatoes and fat and onions, that was good. We had fish hash, we had fried potatoes. You use those vegetables and fish every which way, honey, you know. You made soup. I usually grew potatoes, you know, because that was the mainstay. We grow potatoes. And you had cabbage while it was in season, you know. Like you'd have your plants and you'd transplant them. You'd have 2 or 3 beds of nice cabbage. So you'd cut your cabbage. If you had any amount of it, you'd cut it off just you know, or you could pull up. What I used to do was pull up stalk and all, the big stalk on the cabbage. And where you'd take up the stalk of the cabbage, you turn your head of cabbage down, because now there was a drill, a hole like, you know, a furrow. You turn your cabbage down on that. And then when you had that, you know, this is after the cabbage grew, turned in, and you'd turn in your clay over that cabbage, you know, so you'd have, the cabbage would be covered. Now, whether you got rain or snow or hail or whatever, the cabbage was safe. So when you wanted, and you usually cook cabbage once a week. When it started to get scarce, the cabbage was for Sunday dinner, right? Especially Sunday dinner. That's years and years ago now, you know. But you'd go out then and you'd see the top of the stalk up, you know, and you'd give it a shake and loosen it up, and you'd pull it up, and your cabbage was there just as good as when it was growing, you know. We had a root cellar, you know, a root cellar where you had pounds, a pound for your large potatoes for eating, and then there was a pound for your seed potatoes for the next year, and don't touch them. There was a sign on that said don't touch. Whether the sign was there or not, you didn't touch those small seed potatoes, because they were for next year's crop. So you had a pound for your turnip and a pound for your carrot, you know. But they didn't last long. They lasted maybe until, you know, the end of the year. Then you would buy what you wanted from the store when you ran out yourself. Most of the family, you know, the youngsters, the younger ones, didn't appreciate the dandelion. But my mother always loved dandelion, you know. So, yes, we'd pick the dandelion. Oh, well, as soon as the dandelion got ripe, you know, and you'd see the yellow flowers, you knew it was mostly ripe then, you know. And you'd only pick what you needed, you know. You didn't go out and take it up because it didn't save well, you know. So what you picked, you had to cook it and eat it, right? Yeah, so you get maybe 8 or 10 meals from that, you know, and then there was something else ready, you know. Oh, wild berries, that was something else. Yeah, we had lots of berries, lots of jam. We could go across the pond. I often rode in the dory myself, rode across Holyrood Pond. It's a mile across. But there was good berry picking grounds over on the other side from where I live. So we'd all bundle into the dory and go across the pond. And with a flour bag now, mind you, and a few little small pails. And there were lots of us around, so we'd all go, and by the time we all picked a quart, we had our bag full. So we got in the dory and came home, and they would be mostly partridge berries, you know. They grow well and they save well. And you could you didn't have deep freezers then when I was, you know. Deep freezers and all that didn't come in until later. We got electricity running through. But you'd boil them and bottle them, put them in the cellar, and they good, you know, they were good for years. You seal your bottles tight. Yeah. Well, we always had lots of jam. Anything that the Lord gave us for nothing, He said, just go out and pick, right? We had lots of that. Lots of that. We didn't have to buy it. All you wanted was a bit of energy to go get it. Right? In my family, we did by doing. We did by doing. We were allowed to, you know, we were allowed to cook and help. We all had to help, right? We had to help. Like I remember too, especially when there were two families living in the lane, and we were one of the families, and the other family was next door. So when the older folks would go to a time, like they'd say, a time in the hall, you know, we'd be given so much vegetables to cook a feed for ourselves, and that kept us busy and kept us doing things. So they knew what we were at, you know. And we cooked a big pot of stew or the big pot of soup. And my dear, we used to have a grand time. It was lovely. So we learned how to cook by doing.